Are you new to homeschooling and overwhelmed by all of the curriculum options out there? Well, I've been there, and so this is the video for you because today I'm going to share with you the curriculum options that I recommend for new homeschoolers, specifically because these are a quality curriculum options and they also teach you how to teach your kids so that you can be a more confident homeschooler. I've been homeschooling for 9 years and I have three boys, two with special needs. And I am not a teacher by trade. I don't have a background in teaching. I'm an engineer and I learned about home education once I started teaching my kids. And so I learned the hard way. So today you get to benefit from my struggles, my travails in home education, as I share with you either the curriculum options that I started off with that I felt really helped me learn what to do or feel like I knew what I was doing, or the options that I wished I started with from the beginning. These may not be options that you want to stick with throughout your home education journey, but if you start off with them, they'll teach you enough about these different subjects that, and not just enough about the subjects, but how to teach the subjects that you'll be able to make some good decisions going forward in your homeschool journey when you're ready to branch out from them, and you'll know what to look for when you're making curriculum choices each year. So let's get started right after I remind you to find out what your homeschool laws are locally where you live in your state or in your country before you start buying curriculum or even making any plans. You need to know what's required of you legally. So if you're living in the United States, you can refer to hslda.org. That's the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. And they've got a really nice website where you can drill down to your state to find out what the homeschool laws are and what you have to do. If you're not in the United States, then I recommend you go to your country's education website, your government education website, and maybe get started there. But just remember, what I'm telling you today isn't legal advice. No, you do your homework on what's required of you legally to home educate your kids and then see if these curriculum options will work for you. But okay, now that I've got all those disclaimers out of the way, let's go ahead and dig into these curriculum options. I'm going to cover a few subjects. See, language. I'm looking at my notes here on the screen. So language arts, math, social studies, and science. So that's what I'm gonna cover today. Starting off with language arts, which is like the biggest one because language arts has all these subsubjects: spelling, reading, writing, grammar, literature, and handwriting. So for the first option, let's talk about spelling. What do I recommend for spelling? It's all about spelling. That's an excellent curriculum. And I have created a video about it, and it's a few years old. I should update it. If I've done a review on any of these curriculum options, I'll link them down below when I post this video. So look for links there. But I did do a pretty lengthy video about all about spelling and how we used it in our homeschool. And it's one of those things that's really teacher intensive, but it taught me so much about spelling. I learned so much, like don't tell anybody, but I learned so much about spelling and phonics and how words fit together. You hear like, oh, there's not really rules for spelling once you get past a certain. No, there's a lot of phonics rules. I mean, just starting off with the different sounds every letter makes in English. I have used that so much. I've used all about spelling with one student all throughout, like all levels. My oldest, we went through I think it's 7 levels. Went through them all because that was the best thing for him. He has a language disorder, so we really needed to get into the nitty gritty of spelling and phonics, and that really helped him. I did use it with both of my younger kids for like a year, and then moved on to a different spelling curriculum that is more appropriate for them specifically. But still, the things I learned in all about spelling, I still apply weekly with my younger kids who are still working through spelling and using a different spelling curriculum. It is parent intensive In my review, you'll see how modified it somewhat to how I use it. I didn't use it the way they recommend because, like, it was just too much. But still, even if you use it just for like a year, I think it's totally worth it. What do you think? Do you have a different curriculum option that you would recommend for spelling? Do you agree with me that All About Spelling is great for a new homeschool, or do you think that's too overwhelming? Let me know in the comments. If you have a different curriculum option that you'd recommend for spelling, go ahead and drop that down there as well. There are other good ones, I know. I just haven't used every spelling curriculum. I've used a few. I've used several. And of the ones I've used, this is the one that I feel is best for new homeschoolers. But if you're aware of another one that you think is better for a newbie, drop that down in the comments and help somebody else with your knowledge and wisdom. And for all of these, if you have a different one that you'd recommend, please let us know. We'd all love to know. All right, moving on to reading. Okay, so this is the one that I'm recommending that I haven't used because I did use something else that I already had once I started homeschooling. I just taught all my kids to read that way. But even though I haven't used it, I feel pretty confident recommending it. It's All About Reading. If I knew that All About Reading existed when I started teaching my oldest to read, I would have bought it. All About Reading, I'm recommending because I've used All About Spelling and I have peeked at All About Reading and see just how it's very similar to All About Spelling, but more focused on the decoding of words rather than the encoding, which is spelling. So I would recommend All About Reading. It looks like a lot of fun for kids. They try to put different activities in there to make it a little more fun, a little more interesting, but still really get the learning to happen without busy work and all. So I recommend All About Reading for teaching reading to your little ones. For writing, I've got two that it was a toss-up between these two, between IEW Structure and Style and Evan-Moor's 6 Trait Writing, because they're both very good to really dig into writing. But specifically for this video, for this topic of what's a good option for a brand new homeschooler, I wanted to choose items that were simple to use and had short lessons and gave a lot of step-by-step instructions, and also that were cost effective. And so once I took all that into consideration, I'd say Evan-Moor's 6 Trait Writing is the one for you. It's workbook style. I have used it with all of my kids at different times. And Structure and Style also teaches those 6 traits of writing, but I'm really getting my words all fumbled up here. All right, let's see if I can get this out. Structure and Style also, it's too many S's, that's the problem. Structure and Style also teaches those 6 traits, but in a much more in-depth way. I've actually used the way they taught some things in 6 Trait Writing in Structure and Style with my kids. Like, I've referred to, like, remember when we did the workbook writing and how they said this, and this. So I have referenced 6 Trait Writing, and it made me feel more confident in teaching writing to my kids. Structure and Style is also excellent. It's my favorite, but it is much more in-depth and much more costly. So I'd recommend Evan-Moor 6 Trait Writing. I think I may have a video. I know I have a video where I talk about this, so I'll drop that down below when I post this video. What do you think? Is this a good way to start off writing, or would you think that to just jump straight into Structure and Style? Or is there another curriculum option that you'd recommend? Okay, grammar. So grammar, this is a new one for me this year. I've been so pleasantly surprised with it, and I think it's just excellent. For a new homeschooler, I recommend Beowulf's Grammar. And this is created, I believe, by a homeschool mom. Trying to think, I think the website is Guest Hollow. I mean, I'll put links to all this down below. And I don't think I've done a review for this because this is our first year using it. My youngest is using it. And I really wish I'd found this one earlier because it's really excellent, but it's, I think, a little more fun and interesting for kids. She does such a good job of explaining things well. And it's given me an inspiration, not just in teaching, but when I'm working on putting together a unit study for my kids for next year. And I've thought a lot about Beowulf's grammar and how she put that together. It's so good. So I highly recommend Guest Hollow's Beowulf's Grammar, especially if your kids love like dogs and animals and kind of cutesy type things. My fourth grader is using it right now. I think it's, not sure if it's geared toward a little bit younger or not, but I think even a fifth or sixth grader would be fine with it. It's really a cute, well done curriculum with a lot of review. And she has done a great job of breaking it down, giving you options in the curriculum if you want to do some extra things. Like when you look at the teacher's manual or instruction book, whatever she calls that, I can't remember. When you look at that, she does a really good job of giving you options for other things to do and suggestions for ways to make it a little more fun and all. I've mostly just done the basics with it, but it's been really excellent. I'm really pleased with it. Editing Leslie here. I realized when I was starting to edit this video that I forgot one grammar recommendation for new homeschoolers, and it's IEW's Fix-It Grammar. I really wanted to pop in here and say that because this is a great, I learned a lot using Fix-It Grammar with my kids. I've done it at various times. Right now, my oldest, my ninth grader, is using it as part of his language arts credit for ninth grade. Using one of IW's writing programs plus Fix-It Grammar, and that's gonna show up as one credit on his transcript as composition and grammar. So I wanted to pop in and give you this recommendation because it's great for upper elementary, middle school, and even high school, as I've said. So this one's a good one for kids who are maybe a little too old for the cutesy aspects of Beowulf's grammar, and short lessons. Have a teaching day on Monday, and then the rest of the week, the kids edit one sentence or a couple of sentences, depending on what level they're in. And the version that my son is using this year, I think it's the Frog Prince. It's only 4 days a week. We've used it in the past where it was 5 days a week, I want to say, but they may have updated that. So it's always only 4 days a week. I don't know. But anyway, it's a great one because everything's right there in the teacher's manual about how to teach each week. There's grammar cards, a lot of repetition in it, and very short lesson each day that the kids complete, or just a few minutes worth of work each day that the kids can complete. And there's also a vocabulary element to it that has been great for my kids. I do believe I have a video about this. I may have more than one, I'm not sure, but I'll find those and link them down below. But this is a perfect grammar selection for new homeschoolers that have kids that are a little bit older, like upper elementary, middle school, high school. So back to the video. Okay, for literature. Okay, so this is one of these that I've just used it 1 year. It's kind of back and forth on this one because I haven't really found anything that I feel like is a complete slam dunk when it comes to literature. But the one I'm going to recommend is Lightning Literature. I did use it, I think, last year with my youngest. What I liked about it is that she uses a variety, or they use a variety of books to teach literature. You're touching a lot of different things. My son and I enjoyed most, if not all, of the selections. He was in third grade last year, so we did whatever level that was. And so we read through Winnie the Pooh over the course of the year. I changed that up a little bit, but we did read Winnie the Pooh, and he loved that. It was a really special time for us. And I liked that they had a lot of, I keep saying she, I don't know if it's a she, they had a lot of instruction in there about questions to ask, to discuss what you've read together. to teach literature type concepts. I didn't love everything about it, I gotta say. There's a writing portion that we didn't do at all. I felt like it wasn't even worth mentioning or thinking about. As far as I'm concerned, you need another writing curriculum to teach writing. That's not going to be enough. And some of the worksheets, my son just really hated. I think this is going to be one of those things it's going to depend on your kid. But I loved the lesson planning. I loved the selection of books. Most of it I really liked. I just wish it was a little bit cheaper. I think for what I used out of it, since we didn't use every element of it, like the writing, since we didn't use some of the worksheets, I thought it cost a little too much for what I used it for. But if you're a new homeschooler, you're going to appreciate the teacher's manual portion of it, where you can look through and see exactly what needs to be done and how to discuss the books and what specific questions to ask. You're going to love that. And we didn't do a lot of writing with it. It was a lot more discussion. And so you'll like that as well, because sometimes getting your kids to sit down and do worksheets and all when it comes to literature can be challenging. So you're going to like that. There's some options. It's flexible in that way. So I would recommend Lightning Literature for new homeschoolers. For handwriting, this was an easy one for me. Handwriting without tears is what I'd recommend, both for teaching manuscript and cursive writing, but especially when you're first teaching your kids like their letters and how to form their letters and all. Now, it's not geared toward homeschoolers. It's geared toward just anybody. I think more of a classroom setting or maybe occupational therapists. And I believe it was created by occupational therapists. Since I have a couple of kids who really struggled with holding a pencil, and one of my kids who struggled a lot with fine motor skills, the fact that it was created by occupational therapists was like perfect for us, where they teach you in there even how to teach your child how to hold a pencil. In some ways, the curriculum is very straightforward with the workbook. In other ways, especially when you first teach them their letters, there's a lot of different other supplies, resources you can buy, which we did buy most of them. And it made learning to write a lot more fun. And by learning to write, I mean learning to handwrite. Just how to even make marks on a page. Made it a lot more fun for my younger boys. That's who I used it with. I do have a video about this, so I'll link that down below. And I know I've gotten questions about what to buy and all. I'd say buy the teacher's manual and whatever student workbook your kids need. For the cursive, I thought it was really good for cursive. I didn't like that let me back up. I didn't like that it teaches cursive writing that's more straight up and down. I wish it were slanted. However, the way they break down the cursive writing, I have referenced that as we've moved on to other types of cursive, at this point, cursive practice for my kids. So it did teach me how to speak about the cursive writing, and even just to recognize how important it is to group the learning of certain letters together instead of, let's say, just going through the alphabet, recognizing that there are different types of letters, some where you have to pick up and like cross the T or the I, some that like the tow truck letters, like lowercase b, for example. I really like that it taught me how to think about it when I'm teaching my kids how to write in cursive. So handwriting without tears for both manuscript and cursive writing, but especially for those preschoolers or kindergartners who still need to learn how to hold up a pencil grip. Excellent for that. All right, moving on to math. So what I recommend for math is something that we only used 1 year, and I use it just with one of my kids for 1 year, but I chose it because it's cost effective and because all the instructions right there on the page. And that's Math Mammoth. Really liked it. It's super cost effective. So for a new homeschooler, that's great. And then you can buy the digital copy and print it out. And I think for most people it would work. My one child that I used it with, he's on the autism spectrum, and we had changed from something else, and he struggles with you know, when I change curriculum, he struggles with that, of course. And it was a little too, that transition was too tough for him. And also, he didn't love the different colors on the page. I think the different colors on the page are really good because it shows you, I think, like what's instructional material, what's work that you do. But for him, that bothered. But I think for most other kids, it would work just fine. The one criticism I would give it is that I felt the lessons, if I'm remembering correctly, because it's been a couple of years since we've used it, but the lessons were maybe a little long. Like you may want to do just like a page a day or 2 pages a day, just kind of gauge what your child wants to do. I like to have it broken down much more easily than that because I plan out my school year during the summer so that I'm not planning weekly. And so I feel like that was a little bit of a struggle for me. I didn't love that. But other than that, I think for a new homeschooler where you're having to buy all this stuff, it's cost effective, and math is one of those things people struggle with. Do not get seduced by the video curriculum options out there for teaching math. Other than Math-U-See, that's what we normally use. If you're not actively involved in teaching your children math, you're not going to be able to help them when they're struggling. And a lot of people struggle with math. And if you're someone that struggles with math as well, then all the more reason to use Math Mammoth, because you'll see exactly, without having to dig through a big teacher's manual or anything, you'll see exactly on the page what they're learning. And you can also look in the instruction portion of it to get ideas for other things you can do with them to learn a concept. But in general, you'll be able to look right on the page and see what's happening and help them through that. So I highly recommend Math Mammoth for a new homeschooler. Okay, for social studies, I really just split this down to geography and history, but like world history. I didn't choose an American history option. I've got issues with the way a lot of curriculum companies teach American history. So I don't want to get into that right now. So I didn't even delve into that. Just focusing on geography and world history. So for geography, I recommend Evan-Moor's Daily Geography. Another workbook style, covers everything about geography. Let me tell you, I've learned a lot about geography as well. It's 36 weeks, and the way it's done is there's one new map a week, and they teach some kind of geography or mapping concept during that week using that particular map. And there's a couple, like 2 questions a day, Monday through Friday, plus a challenge question. I believe I have a video where I talk about this one as well, so I'll link that down below. So let me try not to get into the weeds and go into too much covering it. I'm just going to say about it that I think the teaching portion is really nice. On Monday, I teach the concepts to my student, just kind of going over the teacher page about that map. And it's clear and straightforward, and it's very short lessons other than the teaching day on Monday. Other than that, kids don't spend a lot of time on it each day. And it covers like every geography concept. Now, so much is like too much. A little bit like, we don't do this every year. Actually, I just have my kids do like one of them at a time and do it for 1 year and maybe not ever do it again, and just tackle geography in a less intensive way in other curricula, like within our history option. We're not so intense about it every year. But I feel like 1 year of doing daily geography, Evan-Moor's Daily Geography, if you just go through that 1 year and get that really good foundation, then maybe a couple years, maybe a few years later, go through another year of it. But it is a lot. It feels, even though it's just 2 questions a day, it does. By the time you get to that 36th week, you're like, okay, enough. I'm done thinking about geography. But I do recommend it for new homeschoolers because it's so straightforward and short lessons, and you know exactly how to teach your kids, and you'll learn a lot too. I know unless you're some geography whiz, I am not. So The Evan-Moor products in general, I just really like, are really good. Okay, so for world history, Story of the World. We're finally finishing up the 4th volume of Story of the World. There's 4 volumes, starting off with ancient times, going through the modern era. So we're in the modern era one right now. Story of the World, I'm not sure if I have a video about this or not. I may not. I know when we first started using it, it felt like a lot. So I hesitated to recommend this one because when you're a new homeschooler and you get the teacher's manual and you see, when you look at Story of the World, they list so many different activities to do, narration exercises, literature suggestions, hands-on activities, and it can feel like, oh, to really get my money's worth, I gotta do all these things. No, she's providing a buffet of history activities and ways of learning history for your student. You don't use them all. The ancient times volume, it took us 2 years to get through it because I was trying to do so much. Now we're finishing up the final volume. Listen, we don't do any of that. We listen to the audiobook or read out the book. I have my kids write out like some written narration about what they learn, and that's that. I've done different things over the years. Sometimes I've done the activity pages. Sometimes I've done hands-on activities. Sometimes I've pulled some of the literature suggestions. Sometimes we've done oral narration. Sometimes I've had them like draw a picture and like write a sentence about each of the stories. We've done different things. So I'd say if you're willing to spend a little bit of time understanding how the curriculum works and limit what you do. So for example, you might want to do like choose how you're going to do a narration. Are you going to read the questions in the teacher's manual, or are you going to have them write out a little summary of what they learned in each story? So figure out how you're going to do that narration. If you're into hands-on activities, not everybody is. I'm really not. And my kids at this point, they're not either. But if you want to try a hands-on activity, limit to 1, max 2 a week. It got to the point that I was putting off doing history because it was the hands-on activities that were just like doing it for me, where I'm like, I don't want to do this. And then my kids weren't loving it as much either. I mean, we have some half-started hands-on activities. But if your family likes them, maybe just pick 1 for each chapter and see how that goes. So do the narration, pick 1, max 2 hands-on activities. And then maybe if you're more into literature, or if you also want to do literature, look at the literature suggestions and see if anything stands out to you. I would say focus on the more stories and picture books, especially with younger kids. And she does recommend some literature for older kids, but just look through them and see, does anything look good to you? Because you might come across something that you'll be glad that you and your kids read together, or that your kids read solo, that you wouldn't have found otherwise. And then just leave it at that. Like, you don't have to do every activity. You shouldn't, or you're going to hate it. I know that's what ended up happening with me, until I was like, you know what? We're not doing all this other stuff. We're just going to listen to the story and do some narration, and that's that. And my kids still enjoy it. The audiobook, my kids, we really like. Not everybody likes the audiobook. It really depends on taste, about how people feel about a narrator, but my kids really like the audiobooks. And so we do use the audiobook, but that is another purchase to make. All right. So what else? Oh, science. Okay. So for science, this was a little bit of a tough one because my immediate answer, and this is what I'm recommending to you, is one with a Christian worldview, which not everyone's gonna want. But it's not the reason that I like this curriculum option. I mean, it's not the only reason. I do like that about it, but the reason I like it so much is because it's just so well done. And it's so easy to, like, the experiments make sense, and they're easy to you, and really do a great job of illustrating the concept. It's so good. Okay, it's Berean Builders, and we've done the first book, which is, I think, called In the Beginning, which goes over the 7 days of creation, the days of creation, and then you learn different scientific, like, obviously, at the beginning, light. You learn a lot of things about light. he does it's Dr. J. Weil. He's the one that wrote the Apologia series, which if you've been doing curriculum research, I'm sure you've heard about. And those are good too. My older son did a couple of those. He liked them. I thought it was a little too much. And like I thought it was a little just too heavy. And I didn't think those would work with my younger two boys. They don't have that kind of interest in science to get into that much detail. And I felt like it was like too much detail, it was too wordy. So I was really glad to find Berean Builders, where he did exactly what I thought it should be. Like it was just right. That same kind of in-depth scientific learning, interesting, really interesting, but much more manageable for different ages of kids, especially if you're doing this as a group, and we did it as a group. And I don't like doing things as a group. Like if you've seen my videos, you know, group learning is not something that really works for us, but this one worked out fine. If I remember correctly, you can get like notebook and journal type things for different ages, and those were good too. I mean, it was they were pretty basic. The highlight is really the experiments. Whenever my youngest was doing alpha omega for science, I'm not a fan of that curriculum, especially the science curriculum, because I feel the experiments, I read the experiments, I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, I don't think they're good experiments. They're not good experiments. We don't do them half the time. I'm so irritated because I bought the kit to do the experiments. And now I feel like I wasted that money because I just don't feel like they're very good a lot of the time. And I just constantly think back to the Berean Builders experiments. I'm like, those were so good. It can be easy. It can be simple and straightforward. It's just excellent. If you don't have a Christian worldview or you don't want science from a Christian worldview, like I get it. I understand. I can't help you in that way. But if you're a new homeschooler and you don't mind getting science from a Christian worldview, and this is excellent. This is not dumbed down, watered down science. Berean Builders is really good. And especially if you want to do it together as a family or get all your kids involved. It's excellent. Highly recommend. One of the more expensive curriculum options I mentioned earlier was IEW's writing curriculum, the structure and style. If you're curious about that, even though I recommended for a new homeschooler using Evan-Moor 6-trait writing, if you're still curious and think, maybe I want to dip my toes into IEW's curriculum right away, then go ahead and check out this video that I post somewhere around here where I do a flip through of structure and style as we received it. Take a look at that and see if you might be willing to try it. Just to kind of satisfy your curiosity and push the envelope a little bit. That would be really great. And I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.